Hey everyone, good to see you. Right now I am, well, I am obviously not in my usual environment. This probably doesn't look familiar to you at all, and with good reason, because I'm traveling. I'm on the road. I am in the beautiful state of Utah right now, one of my most absolute favorite places to visit and to photograph and to create landscape images. This is like one of those shipping container tiny homes. It's really nice, and it's sitting behind someone's home in this tiny little town called Teasdale that's very close to Capitol Reef National Park. If you've ever been to Capitol Reef, this is very close, and this is, you know, pretty well positioned to be, you know, traveling back and forth and to be photographing different things. So anyway, I'm making this video today because this is a video that I planned to make, and actually I recorded earlier this week before I left town. I recorded a video about the future of Adobe Lightroom, Lightroom Classic, and Adobe Camera Raw. And lo and behold, yesterday, well, Adobe dropped their October 2022 update to all of the aforementioned apps plus Adobe Photoshop. And what was included in that update, you know, kind of affected some of the things that I talked about in that video. So the video was really like instantly outdated as soon as that, you know, as soon as those updates were released. So I thought, I'm just going to re-record it so that it's fresh and it's new, and it takes into account the things that Adobe put out yesterday, which, by the way, I'm not going to go into in this video because honestly, I've been traveling and I downloaded the updates, but haven't really had time to dig into them and to really try some of these new features. I'm sure by now on YouTube there are probably plenty of other videos from other people who are already talking about these new features, who are demonstrating them. What I want to spend time talking about in this video instead, I want to talk for a minute about the future of Adobe Lightroom, Lightroom Classic, and Adobe Camera Raw. What's next? Now that this October 2022 update is out, what's going to be coming in the future? What can we expect to see in the months ahead? And the interesting thing is, Adobe is actually telling us exactly what they're thinking, because recently they put out a user survey for Lightroom and Lightroom Classic users. They send it out by email. I got one, you probably got one as well. In the middle of that survey was a really interesting section where Adobe was proposing some new feature ideas, some things that they were thinking about just to kind of gauge enthusiasm, to gauge interest, and to help give some direction to their internal software development team and their product management team, so that they know what to prioritize and they know what to focus on. Okay, so let's get into it. So the very first feature idea that Adobe proposed in this survey was color improvements, deeper color capabilities that give more control and help with color harmonization. Now this sounds really interesting to me because I've always viewed color as being like one of the more mysterious kind of parts of image processing and development. Color is a very interesting thing. At least I know it is for me, where I feel like it's taken some time for me to really understand color and to work with color effectively in Lightroom. So, you know, with questions like these and feature descriptions like these, it's kind of, well, it is rather hard to tell what exactly it is that they're talking about. They're being intentionally vague here because they don't want to give everything away. They want to leave some room for interpretation here. And they don't want to tell you exactly what it is that they're thinking about, because this isn't like an actual feature yet. It's just an idea. Maybe it could be something similar to a preset where you get a particular look and style, but without the static values, you know, without, you know, just those static numerical values that are baked into a preset. Maybe this is something that would have a little more intelligence behind the scenes, so it could analyze an image and then know how to convert the colors in that image in order to get a particular look, like say like a portrait look, like a film look, or something, you know, something to that effect. Maybe that's something to have in mind. I think it sounds really interesting. Not really sure what it means, but sounds good. Okay, feature idea number 2 is a little more straightforward. I think this one makes a little more sense. Personalized edit style. Suggest adjustments based on my previous edits. And maybe this is something that you turn on and the system would then, you know, basically learn by watching, again, you know, more AI type functionality. Something that would pay attention to, you know, to the images that you're editing. And maybe there's some threshold where you have to edit at least a few images in order for it to, you know, gather enough information for it to be useful. And then maybe once you have that, then you could save that as like one of my styles. Like if I have like a black and white style and a color style or a portrait style or landscape style, all these different things. I could save those and then rename them. And then when I go to edit a new image, I could just access some menu, some interface, and click on the style of image that is most appropriate for the one that I'm currently editing. And then it would automatically, almost like match image in Photoshop, it would automatically edit that image that I'm currently working on to look like other ones that I've edited before. Which, again, sounds like a more advanced version of a preset, similar to a preset in that you get a look quickly, but this would be one that would be more dynamic and based on work that I've already done, edits that I've already made, my own personal style, which again, sounds interesting and could be really, really cool. But of course, it all comes down to the details, right? I mean, this is the kind of, it depends on the intelligence of the AI. This is the kind of thing that it could do a really good job of, or it could, you could end up spending more time undoing the settings that it applied, when it would have taken less time just to edit the image from scratch instead of, applying Adobe's interpretation of your style and then, pulling things out of it. So yeah, it sounds pretty interesting. I mean, I could see this being the type of thing that would not only save time, but also help create better consistency, better, like more consistent results between different images over time, as opposed to ending up with a bunch of images that don't visually kind of relate to each other. This would help, this would potentially help solve some of that problem. So interesting idea. Okay, feature idea number 3 that they shared, GIFs, convert a series of images or short video clips into a high resolution GIF. I don't know. I mean, this feels to me like the kind of thing that would be better, better served in an application like Photoshop or even Premiere. Premiere's actually a pretty good place to be creating animated GIFs. And there's other apps, obviously too, that can do this and probably do it better. I'm not sure if for me, like Lightroom is the place where I would go in order to create one of these. I can't really think of what the practical application of this would be. Perhaps a better app for this actually would be Adobe Bridge. I happen to love Adobe Bridge. I use Bridge all the time. And to me, that would seem to be a better environment to be doing things like creating animated GIFs than doing that inside of Lightroom. But I don't know, maybe it's just me. Maybe there's some of you out there who disagree. Let me know if you do down in the comments. Okay, feature idea number 4 from the survey, background removal. Remove part or entire background of an image. So this to me sounds like an extension of the new select background tool that the new masking tool that they just added to Lightroom Classic and Adobe Camera Raw through that update that came out yesterday. But right now that tool is basically just something that you could use to only make to be making adjustments like exposure adjustments, contrast adjustments, color adjustments, whatever you want to do to the background surrounding a subject. This, what they're talking about, is actually like popping that background out, removing it. Though, of course, Lightroom does not have layers like Photoshop does, so not exactly sure how this would work unless they just really simplified it so that it was more geared perhaps towards product photography, where you could just like choose like a solid color background, or maybe it would come with, some backgrounds, or maybe you could assign images as backgrounds. I'm not, from a user interface perspective, not exactly sure how they would do this without actually implementing layers. But it could be really interesting. I could especially see this being helpful for people who are product photographers, because then you could just pop a product out really quick, put it on a blank background, and do that in your raw editing workflow instead of having to export it and do it inside of Photoshop. For me, I probably would never use it, but I could definitely see it being useful for some other people. Okay, feature idea number 5, adaptive auto tone. Enhancements to auto tone that can apply adapted edits based on the contents or histogram of an image. So this sounds really interesting, and this is actually an area where I feel like Adobe's been a little bit behind the competition. There's been other applications like Capture One. I think On One has this. I know the DxO Photo Lab does. The ability to do things like automatically adjust the lighting, to optimize it for skin tone, like if there's like a, like a person in your shot, or the ability to automatically say improve the mid-tone contrast of your image if it's lacking a little bit of contrast there. Maybe an adjustment to the global contrast without affecting anything else in the shot. Sounds way more useful, for everyone using Lightroom than that one big, you know, auto adjustment button, which it just does way too much. You know, every time I've tried to use it, I never get good results out of it. But if they were to make it more granular and to make it more specific to, you know, different panels inside of the interface, that could potentially be much more useful. And sounds like a positive addition to Lightroom and Camera Raw to me. So yeah, I think it sounds good. Okay, feature idea number 6, simple text, adding text to a photo to create a caption or meme, etc. Um, Similar to my earlier point about animated GIFs, I don't know that Lightroom is really the best place to be doing this. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, maybe some of you would disagree. Although I could see it being like something that could be helpful if, say, you wanted to annotate an image, like for a client, you wanted to put some notes on top of an image, or point something out, or something to that effect. It could be helpful, but the way in which they're phrasing this about adding captions or memes, like you're going to put like impact font, typefaces on the on the top and bottom of your raw image. I don't know. I mean, again, this just doesn't feel to me like the kind of thing that Lightroom would be particularly useful at. And there's other applications for this. So, I mean, it could be useful. I mean, perhaps more useful than, say, than the web or the slideshow interface in Lightroom Classic. I mean, I'm going to talk more about that coming up in a minute. But I mean, there's some pretty old stuff in Lightroom Classic that I'd be surprised that people are really utilizing anymore, because they've been in there for so long. And I don't know, maybe something like this could actually be better than what's currently there. So yeah, could be. Let me know what you think. Okay, feature idea number 7. This one's actually really interesting. Distraction identification. Automatically detect distractions in photos and make suggestions for removal or suppression. Now this sounds really interesting, especially in light of the update that came out yesterday that has the new select object functionality, the new mask tool in there. Because what this could do, this feels like an extension of that, where there would be some type of back-end, again, artificial intelligence that would recognize specific objects within an image and know what they are, and then use that select object functionality to be automatically selecting those things, and then use the new content-aware fill functionality that it has in order to be replacing those items in your image, and to do so automatically. What would those distractions be? Well, what was interesting about this particular question was that when I said, yes, I'm interested, I would be excited to see this, there was actually a follow-up question thereafter in the survey where they said, well, what are those distractions? What are the things that you most commonly remove from an image? And there was a whole list of options, but some of them included sensor dirt and dust, telephone poles, birds and insects, blemishes and wrinkles in skin, trash and lampposts, rather specific, text and logos on clothing, that kind of stuff. And the way I envision this working is that there will be some type of interface in Lightroom similar to that new masking interface for selecting a person in the new update that came out, where you could select hair or eyes or face or skin or what have you. There would be some type of interface like that where you could check what are the distractions that you want Lightroom to pay attention to, and what are the things that you want it to ignore. Trash and lampposts, I'm all good with. Telephone poles too, because I feel like it's part of the environment, it's part of the shot, and I wouldn't want to be automatically removing those things. But so for me, I'd want to keep those things. But something like sensor dirt and dust, totally. Like I would love to just be, to automatically clean up an image and to be removing those things, and to do so intelligently, again, so that the software is using that new, more advanced content-aware fill functionality to be doing it, and to be replacing those objects within the image in a much cleaner fashion than perhaps it's been able to do in the past. So for me, I think that sounds really cool. Again, it all comes down to the details, right? And we could easily get it wrong, and then it might be challenging to undo what it is that Lightroom has done. So, so I guess we'll have to see. But this to me sounds like the logical next step for where Adobe is probably going to be heading next. Okay, then finally, number 8, current features. Focus product team effort on addressing existing features, improve performance, increase speed, consistency across app or other areas where the experience could be better. I don't think this is a particularly sincere question. I think this question is merely included, basically just to get, well, for a few different reasons. One, perhaps to make sure that you're actually paying attention in the survey and not just going through and just, clicking that, checking boxes that none of it sounds interesting to you, because everyone is going to be interested in this, right? I mean, who doesn't want the app to improve, the performance and the speed of the application to improve? I mean, that's a given, right? Everyone wants that. But I think it's another way for, to kind of gauge where people are with the application right now. Like maybe that is of greater concern than anything else that they've talked about or anything else that they proposed earlier in the survey. And now, this is kind of like your chance to say, basically like, screw all the other stuff. I don't care about that stuff. I just want you to fix the current state of the app, and I want it to be better. I want it to be faster. I want the performance to be better. I don't know. I don't know how much of an issue that is anymore. I don't feel like I have any problems with performance or speed. Maybe I'm missing something. Maybe some of you are experiencing that. So yeah, personally, I don't take that question very seriously, because I mean, speed and performance are always important. They're things that, people always want. With an application. So it's not like people are, suddenly going to change their mind and say, no, I don't think speed and performance are important anymore. Of course they are. They're always important. So as I said, not a particularly sincere question, in my opinion. So elsewhere in the same survey, Adobe was asking questions about how I use Lightroom and Lightroom Classic. Do I use both? What do I do in one application versus another? When would I choose one application over another? And the thing that came to mind for me when I was taking, the survey, when I was answering those questions, and this is something I've been thinking about in general for a while too, is there has to come a time, there has to be some date in the future where Adobe effectively folds Lightroom Classic into Lightroom. Because I mean, think about it. Every time some new feature update comes out, just like the one from yesterday, that feature has to be implemented 3 times. They have to put it in Classic, the cloud-based version of Lightroom, and Adobe Camera Raw. Now, I don't feel like Adobe Camera Raw it's kind of its own thing. I don't think that's going to change. But Lightroom Classic is getting pretty old in the tooth now. I mean, they haven't committed any resources at all to updating its interface. It has the same bevels and drop shadows, and it's all old and outdated. I mean, that look is, kind of like belongs in the Adobe design system from like 10, 15 years ago. And they've clearly moved beyond that along with the rest of the world. Like everything is, darker and flatter now, and you don't have this this kind of like 3-dimensional beveled look that the original Lightroom Classic still continues to use. And it has to be a drain on Adobe internally to be maintaining both Classic and Lightroom, where, both of them are pretty close to each other feature-wise, with the main difference between them being where images are stored. Because in Lightroom, the cloud-based version, obviously the images are stored in the cloud through Adobe. And then with Classic, they're all stored, locally, which is why I use Classic, because I have, like 16 terabytes of data, and I can't be storing 16 terabytes with Adobe because that would be crazy expensive. So it seems to me the logical next step would be some way of sandwiching these apps together and making it so that the cloud-based version of Lightroom also includes local storage, so that it supports all the local catalog functionality of Lightroom Classic, makes that an option, or you can store that content in the cloud, which is what the current Adobe Lightroom cloud-based version does. And it really wouldn't be that different from, say, like Adobe Photoshop, where you go to save a document right now and it says, hey, do you want to put this locally? Do you want to save this to your hard drive, or do you want to save this in the cloud? And perhaps that might be a little simplistic compared to importing tons and tons of raw images and managing all those images, but it seems doable to me, and it seems like the logical next step for Lightroom and Lightroom Classic for these things to be merged together. Personally, I'd like to see it, because then there would just be one singular application to talk about, one singular application to use across desktop, on the web, on a tablet, on a phone. It's just Lightroom. And we don't have the whole Classic thing anymore. Now, I know there are some diehard Classic users. I'm one of them. I've been using it since the very first public beta. I mean, it's kind of like one of those, pry it from my cold dead hands kind of things, but it feels inevitable, and it feels like the kind of thing that should happen, and it feels like it would benefit everyone. Yeah, who knows? If you have any thoughts on that, if you have an opinion on that. If there's something I'm not thinking about with how, what the effect could be by merging these applications together, hit me up. Let me know down in the comments below. Okay, that's it everyone. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please give this video a thumbs up down below. And if you have not already done so, also subscribe to my channel if you would like to see more videos like this one in the future. Maybe not from such a cool little, a tiny home like this one, but I put out a video every week, so you can always keep up to date with me by subscribing to this channel. You can also head over to my website and sign up for my weekly email newsletter that contains updates from here on YouTube, new articles I've written, plus other stuff that doesn't show up here on YouTube or anyplace else. It's only for people who sign up for my email newsletter. So if that sounds interesting to you, head over to my website at todddominey.com. And there you will see a little, prompt down in the lower right-hand corner to subscribe to the newsletter. So yeah, check it out. Okay, that's it. I'm hitting the road. I'm going to go out, do a little bit of scouting, some planning for something I'm planning on shooting tomorrow morning. Hopefully it goes well, and hopefully the rest of the day works. So enjoy the rest of your day, everyone. Hope you enjoyed the video. I'll see you next time.